1 FM Talk, St. Louis conservative. Tech Talk Tuesday with George Rosenthal of ThrottleNet, ThrottleNet.com.
Yeah, here we are again, another Tech Talk Tuesday with George Rosenthal from ThrottleNet at ThrottleNet.com. How are you this afternoon?
Doing great. Thanks so much for having me on again. Hope you're having a good week so far.
Pretty good week. Let me just ask something I thought of, and it's not on our list of things to talk about today, but I just wanted to kind of hit you with this because we have all this technology, and we're going to talk about this crazy stuff coming up here in this segment as we often do on Tuesdays. But I kind of think about it, I joke sometimes about we have all this stuff, we can put a rover on Mars, and, we can't have a cell signal over by the zoo on Highway 6440. But when it comes to security at these large events, I guess I continue to be amazed that the technology hasn't come a little further. And if it has, we seem to be not using it. I don't know. Any thoughts on that topic?
100%. I cannot believe what's going on with that. I mean, when I go to a trade show, a basic trade show, you have a tag. You got to go stand in line, register, show your registration, get a tag that has an RFID chip in it, and then that chip is scanned everywhere you go. And on top of that, this is a basic trade show. They're using Wi-Fi to read the RFID chips to see where everyone is in the exhibition hall. And this is basic technology for just a conference. I cannot believe they had 3,000 people in that event, and there wasn't any type of security to get. Now, once you got to the ballroom door, sure, there's a magnetometer, and they're looking for metal and such. I don't care who, if you're a Pete Hegseth who's in charge of the Department of War, you should still have to wear a little badge with a little chip on it so they know where you are, that you're inside the ballroom or outside the ballroom or wherever that may be. But that technology is so basic. The fact that it's not being used is astonishing to me.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I asked the question because it's kind of astonishing to me as well. Now, one of the things that some people have said is, look, the responsibility of the Secret Service is the people that they're assigned to, right? So they're not really assigned to that particular event. It's not a presidential event. It's different. And then, of course, you wouldn't have an event typically with a bunch of people, that are in a hotel. That makes it unique because there's people checked into the hotel who don't, participate in that event. But having said all that, it's still, they were using paper tickets here, too. And Harris Faulkner and others were saying, they really weren't looking at those tickets too closely. So It's not on the Secret Service because I think that they were doing their job as, prescribed. But my goodness, you got to look at better security.
And on top of that, Mark, one of the reports was that the perpetrator got into a room that just had one other gal in. I think it was a back kitchen room or some side room off the banquet hall to put together his shotgun.
Right.
So if you had a badge on with an RFID chip, you can designate groups of people that are allowed to be in certain rooms and those who aren't. And when he walked into that room to assemble his shotgun, he should have been part of a group that's not allowed in those back rooms, and it would have alerted security immediately that there's an RFID chip inside this room, or maybe an RFID chip's been left behind and it's been sitting there for 10 minutes, so he took it off.
Right.
So it could alert what's going on. There's so much technology now that can alert all this stuff. And to have 3,000 people in one giant room where all this guy had to do was check into a hotel, I mean, my goodness, that's your security?
But, George, here's what's interesting. This is the first conversation. I bet the listeners, this is the first time that they're hearing a conversation around that particular aspect of this event. And I think it should be out there in the forefront a little bit.
100%. Nobody's talking about this. What we're talking about this very second, no one's talking about. And it's crazy to me from a technological standpoint how that wasn't addressed immediately on why the security isn't out. I mean, I know it's not a presidential event, but the president's there along with most of the succession of the government, by the way.
I know.
The Speaker of the House is sitting there. The Vice President's sitting there. I mean, if that guy had a bomb and blew up the place, the first three levels of the government are gone. It's like, what are we doing?
I'm going to talk to Senator Schmidt this week. I'm going to say that he needs to appoint you and I'm only coming along for the ride, just so you know, to take a look at this because, we're in seriousness. This is really something that people should be talking about. But, George, let me move on because we got limited time here. There's lots of cool stuff to talk about. How about a $5 trillion market cap for Nvidia right now?
Wow, this is unbelievable. If you got in on this stock long ago, God love you, because you're up at a massive, massive value. They are now the most valuable company in the world. They passed Microsoft and Apple. But here, and everybody's like, well, this has got to be a bubble. That's the big talk on the street. Intel's numbers just came in, and obviously that's a big competitor of Nvidia because of the AI chips. Well, their demand for AI chips went through the roof. So their numbers are staggeringly successful. So it's showing that it's not a bubble and that there is a massive sustained build-out demand for data centers, AI servers, and, of course, most importantly, the AI chips. Now, before you go and throw tons of money in Nvidia, and I'm not a stock trader, but I can tell you one thing from a technological standpoint, is they've got some serious problems up ahead, and that is their competitors. They're Google, Microsoft, Meta, and Amazon. Those are the customers that are buying NVIDIA's chips, the AI chips. It's also their competitors, because every single one of those vendors that I just said is actively right now trying to build their own manufacturing plants to build their own AI chips. So NVIDIA is doing great right now, but each one of those vendors, as they start to build their own plants and build their own chips, they're not going to need NVIDIA anymore. So got to be real careful. This turns into the whole Netflix, Internet Explorer thing. Just because you're first and big doesn't mean you're going to sustain and be there forever.
Yep, good lessons there for sure. By the way, this is something I haven't talked about at all, but there is a trial that's going on in Oakland, and I want you to explain this a little bit here, because this could have some significant implications, couldn't it?
This is huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's being called the AI trial of the year. Could be the trial of the century that sets the precedent. Look, Sam Altman, St. Louisan, started with OpenAI. But look, OpenAI started because Elon Musk gave the seed money, okay? And it was meant to be a not-for-profit. All right, it was OpenAI was a not-for-profit that was it was called AI for Humanity, okay? They've turned it into a profit-generating monster with Microsoft. So Musk is ticked off, and because he left OpenAI after he helped start it, and he's saying, look, I put all this money in because you were going to be a charity. You were supposed to help people, and it was supposed to be AI for humanity, and now you've turned it into a cash cow for Sam Altman and Microsoft. Well, he's suing. Musk is suing OpenAI and saying, look, you need to give all the profits that came from my investment back to the charity to help AI for humanity instead of putting it in your pockets. So he's suing them. He wanted it to be in Oakland where he could get a more favorable jury. It's actually in San Francisco. San Franciscans, they are widely known for being on the side of big tech versus the charity side of it. So we don't know really how that's going to go. Jury selection started yesterday for the trial, but this is and you know what's funny is right before the trial or right before the jury selection started, all of a sudden Microsoft and OpenAI decided to rewrite their agreement to be not so much in the pocket of Microsoft, which is pretty convenient considering what they're up against.
Well, what are they?
OpenAI. I'm sorry, go ahead.
What's Elon asking though for? He's asking for the money to go back to the nonprofit,
to the
or
charity.
Is he
Correct.
Okay? All right.
He doesn't want any of the money. He's not trying to get the money.
I got it.
He wants it to go to what he originally intended it to be for, and that's why he gave them the hundreds of millions of dollars that he gave them.
Right. And
all of a sudden they turned it around. Instead of being for good for humanity, they're pocketing the profits. And look, it's turning out to be a crazy mess. I mean, right now, OpenAI is valued at $852 billion, and they're about to do an IPO later this year that could take them even, to the largest IPO in the history of the stock market. And that's something to keep an eye on, because where does that lead to if Musk wins this lawsuit? So a lot of that can hinder on this IPO coming up. And in the meantime, OpenAI is losing billions of dollars a month.
Yeah, that's very interesting. All this stuff is just overwhelming. One more topic here, and I don't really understand what the appeal of this is, but maybe you can tell me. Dell is launching something that has a 40-hour lifetime to the battery, a laptop, right?
So that's what the marketing says.
Okay.
It is a dynamite improvement. It really is awesome. So this is the Dell XPS 14. It's out right now. It lasts, according to them, 43 hours on a single charge. Now, that is when you're not moving the mouse cursor, it freezes the screen, uses zero electricity from a screen perspective, because that's what's pulling a lot of the battery issue. But when you start watching YouTube videos, if you start actively using the screen, you're moving the mouse a lot, that drops down to about 20 hours. So, yes, it's the longest battery that Dell has put out. Typically, if you're just reading a book, great, it could last you 43 hours. Most of the time, it's going to go about 20 hours. But still, it's an amazing achievement for Dell and for a Windows machine. It's fantastic. But Apple still does hold the crown for performance watts using heavy video editing. So if you're on a battery-powered MacBook Pro, you're going to get a lot more use out of the battery wattage when you're doing video editing or heavy computing. But it's still an amazing achievement. The Dell XPS 14 is definitely something I would look at for yourself, of course, but definitely with kids in school who don't bring their chargers all the time and end up in class after class after class doing homework and so forth, and they need a longer battery to last. I mean, 20 hours is still a long time for a laptop to last on a single charge.
Okay, couple observations. One, as you know, I just got a new iPad Pro, and the other iPad was about 4 years old, I would say. The battery life difference it's night and day. It's not even close, right?
Yes,
like I would have to sit here every day with my charging cord. If I would start to use, I don't even have it plugged in, but if I would start to use it in the middle of the day at 3 o'clock, it wouldn't last the whole show without my charging cable. But having said that, like, who needs to go 40 hours without plugging the damn thing in? Even 20 hours. I mean, that's
right.
That's not a draw for me. I guess it might be, like you said, for students or some people, but that confuses me a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I do also keep in mind, remember, these batteries have memory. So if you're always charging them back when they're halfway full, eventually the battery will have that memory of being half full and will only use half of its energy. So the batteries do have a memory. If you let it drain all the way down and then start a full charge again and let it go all the way to full charge, you'll have a longer lasting battery. But that's not people's normal habits. I also think there's a conspiracy, which may be true, and that is as these Apple devices and other devices, not just Apple, but as these devices age, I think the software is burning the battery down a little bit to promote you to buy the next thing.
I think so too. I mean, I've kind of always felt that way.
And that's alleged. That's not confirmed. I think it's true just based on the 20 years of working with these products.
Yeah, I do believe there's a little bit to that. By the way, on the battery charging thing, and I don't really know if I understand this, and maybe you just explained it, but when I was messing around with the latest iPhone, so I think I have what's the new one that just came out? I have the 15, probably not the 16.
Max Pro,
so I might have the 16. So, but there is like some setting, and I think I even had it on for a while, that only allowed the battery to be charged to 80% because that was the recommendation to keep the battery life longer. I don't know that I understand that. I think maybe I do that, but I don't understand it.
So think about the battery as a giant parking lot, okay, full of spaces. And you have these little particles of energy, and they need to find a parking space. So when you're charging, all you're doing is putting these little molecules of energy into their parking spaces in the giant parking lot. If you start to overflow it and you go to 90 to 100% every time, it's hard for that one speck of energy to find the parking spot in the top back corner of the lot, because it has to drive around for a while to find the last open space. So that ends up creating heat. That's friction that wears the battery life down. So you only want to go to 80% so that these particles aren't trying to find a parking space that's at the very back of the lot and driving lane by lane by lane by lane until it finds that open space, generating heat and friction. So that's what ends up taking the battery life down, and why they recommend only 80%, so that these particles can easily find a parking space quickly without generating heat.
That has to be one of my favorite analogies ever. Not just from you, but anyone. I like that. That actually, I kind of understood that. That's why it's so good.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's the way you think about a battery. It's a giant parking lot trying to put energy particles into a parking space. That's its only goal.
By the way, I still think it's amazing. One of the stories we covered last week was this Apple, what are they calling it? The Neo computer. And the fact, I've shared this with some people, the fact that basically the framework of that, I think if I heard you correctly last week, is essentially what the iPhone is, right?
It's 100% an iPhone 16 Pro. It is literally an iPhone, and they just literally took the control board, they took the chip, They took everything out of it, put it into a laptop body, filled it full of battery, didn't even need to put any fans in because the chip is so efficient. It generates so little heat. Obviously, your iPhone doesn't heat up just holding it in your hands in your living room. That's how efficient the chip is. So the MacBook Nano is literally an iPhone 16 that's wrapped into a laptop body.
I've shared that story just because I think it's very interesting. George, always great. Wrapping up another Tech Talk Tuesday, throttlenet.com. I appreciate it as always. We'll talk next week.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of the week.
Traffic from the 96.